Welcome back to another Spilldrop video. Today I'm going to be expanding on my collection of super modules with another installation that will include some pretty unique base modules that might increase the efficiency of one of your existing bases, or perhaps will give you some new ideas for where you can start in the future. I've also got a very unique exploit that I discovered pretty recently in here as well, so stay tuned and you will see something you maybe haven't ever seen before. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get straight into the first module. So first things first, we've got the horse barn module. It's just a 1x2 with an additional half-high wall on the top of it. In here you can see we've got two composters. Hey buddy. We've got a hitch and trough right here for the horse. We also have a door here which will protect the horse, which can be led around, can't actually come back out through the door. So you can still lead them, but it won't actually allow the horse to leave that little area there. So it's technically locked in here by this door, which can be really handy when you're getting a start with a horse base and you want to make sure that no one is running off with your new best friend. Now, the other thing that's great about having a horse for this design is it means you don't need to jump up to get up here to the farm portion. After you've done your business and your horse has done its business, you can take that extra nutritious growing material, compost it right down here, and once it's composted into fertilizer, you can put it down here at the bottom of your planter boxes to help encourage new growth. A very cool way to utilize this space. It does help also having this extra half-high space above your horse anyway, just so that way it's easier to navigate in these horse barn areas, but this gives it a little bit more utility. It also incorporates a pretty interesting airlock here, so if you have your door on one of these two walls, which is probably where you're going to want an exit door, you have a functional airlock whenever either one of these doors is open. So as you can see, I can't push through here. If this door is open, I can't push through at all. But even with just the one, I'm still unable to pass through this door. So that gives you an airlock. Your horse is locked in place. Can't lead it out of here as we already tried. So yeah, I mean, it's a pretty neat design. This is our first module. Looking pretty good so far. Now our second module right here is going to be an advanced storage module. So this may not be for a small group or even a solo player like myself, but for a larger group who's looking for one of those like open core, insanely dense loot designs, this is a really good way to go about doing that. Up here on this top shelf, you can't really see it very well, but if this is put in with most of your base already set up, you can put adapters on the inside of these two boxes where the front buckle on the box appears on the model. That way you can incorporate even those two boxes into an automated system if you wish. It does become very challenging once you get this box in, because then you can't really access those adapters very easily, but certainly is still possible. Otherwise, there's quite a few other options for adapters, as you can see here. Even down on these barrels down in the back, you've got adapters. All of these boxes have them. These barrels have a ton. As you can see, there's even stacks of two small boxes up on either of these shelves and down below. So quite a lot of storage. We're looking at 5 large boxes, 6 barrels, and then 6 small boxes for this design. All in what is, I guess, essentially a vertical 1x2, since you've got the two half-high segments there and then the whole height segment here. So a really good concept if you're looking for just the densest possible loot layout. This is a really good way to go. It also looks pretty nice, if I do say so myself. Now over here, we've got a concept that I've been working on for a charcoal generator. I've noticed big groups or groups that snowball really quickly don't have enough charcoal, and they don't have a very good way to automate the process of making charcoal. So they wind up with, like a million of those little campfires scattered around their compound around, or they have a bunch of furnaces like this kind of scattered around making charcoal, but I wanted to make it a little bit more logical and controllable. So this is my system here. Got 9 of these low grade based furnaces tucked down in here with all of their adapters. You can connect them to any one of these mini conveyors and just have wood cycle into these furnaces. Charcoal will be generated when that wood burns up, and then you'll have a lovely supply of charcoal that's just constantly being generated as long as you have wood flowing into this system. Now, on top of all of these furnaces, I've got what could be considered a mock-up of a brain for one of those automated sorting systems that you may have seen. Now, obviously, building one of those systems is a little challenging and does take quite a lot of time. So for this demonstration, this is really just a placeholder for where you might place quite a lot of these conveyors that are needed to operate one of those brains. For now, this is just to give you an idea of how you can incorporate 2 of these modules together, a automated sorting brain module and one of these automated charcoal furnace modules. Now above this, on the jump up, we have an industrial crafting setup. The tier 2s are pretty small in their footprint compared to the 3s or the tier 1s, so they actually work pretty well in a jump up like this. They don't cause too much of like a bottleneck or an issue with navigation. You can still move pretty quickly between the 2 floors without interfering with these workbenches or having them get in your way. But they also serve as a great resource for manufacturing med supplies, manufacturing ammunition, or anything you could really need for your wipe. So you can see I've got 4 industrial auto crafters placed on these 2 tier 2 workbenches. The small boxes on the ends here have room for adapters. The ones on the inside there don't really have the space. It's possible you could make it work if you didn't have this box here, but just for sake of this, I went ahead and left them just as a drop storage. Alright, now this module right here is quite interesting to me, and I'll show you how it works. So from the front, you see basically a very standard shop front, maybe a little bit more compact than most people would be used to. You've got your Peacekeeper turrets up top there with their little fence enclosures to keep them safe. I have them set up so that they are nested in the gate portion of the fence, so that way you can still access them from outside the wire, but they have an extra layer of protection by being kind of sandwiched into this gate here, as you can see. Now this shop front is pretty neat. You can come right up here, access both of these vending machines with no trouble at all. You can see that there's garage doors in there, kind of keeping them sheltered in. With this embrasure and this window bar, if somebody were to break either of these vending machines, when the loot bag dropped, it would be pretty much impossible to reach from here. Maybe have a little bit of a shot from this angle, but it would be very, very challenging to actually loot these, which makes it kind of a nice way to protect them from that eco raid type situation. Now from the back, this is a surprisingly small footprint, and what's even crazier is it's fully accessible from the inside. It's a little challenging getting up on these little boxes down here, so I recommend putting a campfire here. Lets you walk right up on top like that, and you don't have to jump or anything. Makes it pretty nice and easy. We've got the turret switch right here. Open these 2 garage doors, and now you can start to see how this works. Got the vending machine placed very, very far up against that corner, right along the seam of the foundation. So there's room for small boxes to go all the way back in here. Same with this vending machine, all the way up against that wall, right along the seam of the foundation. So there's plenty of room for your tool cupboard with the automated adapters and adapters on both of these vending machines and all of these boxes. This is probably the most compact 2 vending machine storefront I've ever seen. If there's a smaller one, I would love to see how somebody accomplishes it, but I don't think it'll be able to include this degree of storage either, which I find to be just an insane advantage. Now this is going to be my introduction to the next segment. You may be wondering, what the heck am I looking at here? And that's fair, because in Rust, stacking small boxes like this, while it makes a lot of sense, is not possible under ordinary circumstances. So if you've got a small box just like one of these here, it looks like you should be able to stack it. It would make a lot of sense, but you can't. there's just no way to do it. You can only put them next to each other. However, I have found that when you use this prison cell wall, it actually acts as a vertical stabilizer, locking them in place and allowing them to be stacked either on top of another object or just on these bars that you see here, for example. Got our prison bars here. Now, even just on top of other boxes, stacking is quite easy with this prison cell setup, but you can just find any one of these horizontal rungs on this prison cell and place a box on top of that. Like so. Now this could dramatically change some of the meta in Rust. The degree to which you can increase your storage for a piece of triangular honeycomb using just a prison cell wall like this is pretty significant. For example, if you wanted to place a piece of honeycomb on your base, but you also wanted to use that extra little triangle space for storage or for whatever, here's what you could do. You could place a prison cell here instead of a wall. Now, the prison cell still requires 2 regular rockets or 4 satchels to break, so it's still pretty solid, about the same as just a regular metal door, but you can access and place objects very easily just straight through these prison cell walls. Just like so. I can access that back furnace with no trouble at all. And what's even cooler is if you're getting raided and somebody breaks one or even both of those walls, they can't get through because you've got this prison cell here. They'd have to keep rocketing it or throwing satchels at it. Meanwhile, you can just go place those walls back down once the building block is cleared and get your base back up and running with no risk. So you don't have to go outside. You could stay inside, defend your base from behind this prison cell wall, place your walls back down, and everything is back to normal. These are just a couple of examples for how to use this prison cell wall to stack items or create new possibilities for storage. Right over here, I've got another concept using this research table. So usually these deploy pretty roughly in your base and don't allow for a lot of overlap of other objects. However, in this case, I was able to get the research table in here, a large box underneath, and 2 small boxes above. So that way you have a little bit of extra storage over top the research table that you might not otherwise have. And then over here, I've got some water catchers inside the base. Now, this requires you to place the water catchers first with no roofs over top. Then you can place these frames and these floor grills, and that will still allow these to accumulate water as long as there is a grill over top. Down here and along with this prison cell wall over here, I've got 3 generators stacked up. And these are actually how I discovered that this was possible. I pushed the generator through the prison cell walls and they kind of did this weird thing where they clip right through it. These other deployable items just clip right on, so I thought, you know, surely this thing would collide with these generators, but it doesn't seem to at all, really. And then I found that you can just stack these boxes right on top of the generator, and that's what led to this whole discovery. So now we know, very cool way to store a lot of extra loot in this kind of vertical format here. Before we move on, I just want to give a quick shout out to this fun design, which has 2 of the witch's cauldrons, which are typically Halloween exclusives, but you may still be able to find them on the marketplace, kind of sandwiched with a small box between them here, just right underneath the tier 3 workbench. So I recommend placing the 2 cauldrons first with just about enough room for the small box underneath, then place the tier 3 and then the small box after those items have been deployed. Now on this side right here, I've got some more kind of unique but efficient storage. This has a downward facing ramp on the top and an upward facing ramp on the bottom. You've got 4 large boxes in this design here, back there, each with their adapters as you can see. Then you've got 5 small boxes with this orientation, and they all tuck very nicely behind the door. This one down here, you can just barely see it, still can't access it, but you can just barely see the little lip of that box there. But quite a nice looking storage module, if I do say so myself. Now over here, we've got a furnace module, very typical, one that you would expect to see in any kind of base with that Moneycomb. It's got the prison cell wall and some extra storage up here. Now I'd recommend putting the boxes such that you can actually access the adapters on them, but since that's kind of tough to tell on some of these boxes, you may have to try that a few times. Now this is kind of a cozy little module here. We've got two small planters down below, got their sprinkler set up there, got a horizontal barrel, a repair bench, and two small boxes each with their adapters accessible there. Just kind of a multi-use module. If you're living out of a base with a lot of triangles, this may be a good module for you to try. Now another pretty interesting loot room we've got is this one right here. This concept is also intended to generate a little bit of extra charcoal as well. You can see we've got 4 of these cauldrons in this design. We've got 3 barrels, 2 large boxes, and a small box. So still quite a bit of extra storage in this space, even with the 2 cauldrons and the campfire to generate some extra charcoal. You really can't get much better bang for your buck. This truly does give you quite a lot of utility. With this campfire, of course, you can still climb up, see over this front barrel, and access that back barrel very easily, which is nice. On this side, I've got 18 electric furnaces squeezed in here. You can kind of see all the way back here. So from all the way back in here, we've got our 3 furnaces set up facing this orientation here. That's where their adapters go. Same with the second row here. And then the first row you can kind of freestyle with, just depending on what gives you the best amount of room. The top shelf can be tricky to place, and it does take quite a few attempts to get all of those furnaces placed as snugly as they need to be in order to get these furnaces to clip on this shelf. You can't have too much overhang, otherwise they won't work. But with all said and done, you still get kind of a nice result. There's definitely some overhang and whatnot, but certainly something that you can incorporate into your own design to get 18 electric furnaces in just 2 triangles. And that's all I've got for you today. That is my new collection of super modules. Some pretty unique stuff on today's list. If there's something that you want to see more of, if one of these designs really piqued your interest, please let me know down in the comments, or you can reach out to me on Twitter. But otherwise, this has been your friend Spilldrop, and I will see you in the next video.